Now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and start. Hopefully you all can hear me all right. I'm going to unmute you and just check to make sure, in case you want to ask questions, I can unmute everybody. And if you put yourself on your side muted and then unmute yourself if you want to ask a question, we can deal with this webinar and so you can ask questions. So I'm going to unmute David. David, can you hear me? David might not be sitting at his computer. Debbie, can you hear me? Larry, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, cool. Sue, can you hear me? Okay. So Sue, you and Debbie, right, are both from Big Trees, right? Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and leave everybody unmuted from my side, right? So if you're getting echoes or anything like that, or you've got background noise, go ahead and mute yourself, but you can unmute yourself if you want to ask a question, right? Or as Debbie and Sue dropped actually into my the chat room to ask a question, and you can do it that way, and we can try and get through whatever questions people have, right? Because this is basically a simple demo, right, of what Prism, which is the Retail Pro browser-based version of Retail Pro. It's been out for several years. This webinar covers POS, right? So ringing transactions, dealing with customer recording information, so just the basics, and opening and closing the register. So we don't get in this webinar into creating items, receiving, any of that background stuff or back office stuff. We focus mostly on the customer interface. So I'm going to log in to Prism here. This is the window, right? You can see it's in a browser. I happen to be using Chrome. That's really the best browser for Prism. It interacts the best with Prism. The username and password, right, is a Retail Pro username and password, just like you use in your version 8 or version 9. Okay. And so we're going to log in here. I have the password saved in here, which is not recommended. However, it makes it easier to demo. So this is the menu for point of sale, right? So you've got buttons here. Some of them you can see are grayed out. That could be for permissions, or in this case, you can't access this from the menu, right? So you can see things that are familiar here, check in and check out. That's the time clock feature that we're not covering that in this webinar. And other things that have to do with the traditional sales receipt section of your version 8 or your version 9, if you're using those. I know that some of you who are in this webinar are existing Retail Pro users. Some of you may not be. So I try to tie my Prism to people's experience, right, with version 8 or version 9. So if you're not one of those people, bear with me. I'll try to minimize that, but just to try to point out where the intersections between older versions of Retail Pro are and the this web-based version. Okay, so what we're going to do first, right, we have the system set up so that we can't ring a transaction until we open the register. And that is optional. You don't have to use that feature. However, I have it set up here so I can show you how it works. If I go to the XZ Out tab right here and go to Z Out, my choices are open the register or close the register. Now, I know that I closed the register last night when I was practicing, so I can go right to open register. Okay, It shows some filter criteria here. It defaults to this store, this workstation, etc. So generally, you're not going to want to change anything like this, right? It knows what we're opening the register for, right? The only thing that maybe you change is you don't open it for a specific cashier. In this case, I'm just going to leave the defaults. When I click the next button down here at the bottom, right, I get the opportunity to count in my drawer. Okay, so you can count in your drawer. Some people allow just no radio. Some people allow the grand total here to be put in instead of counting it. But if you're using this, the smart thing to do is to have everyone count. Okay, so if we go to each of the count here and tell it what's in our drawer, right, for our opening bank. I'm going to cheat here because I'm not going to take the time to make up a count here that would be realistic, but I'm going to open my drawer with, I got 520s in my drawer. That's $100. Now, if you're foreign currency, right, you can see there's other currencies here that you could use. If you don't use foreign currency, then all of these would not be here. This just happens to be configured so that we can show foreign currency for those people who use it. So that's all there is to opening. Count your drawer, right? So when I go to finish, right, my register's been opened. Okay, and that's it, right? I'm open, I'm ready to go. So I can go back to point of sale. All right, and we're going to start with really basic stuff, ringing a transaction. So that's new transaction here. All right, now this is the screen that you operate on when you're ringing sales, right? Almost everything you need can be accessed from this screen, right? And the first thing, what's it asking for? Asking for the item. So here you would scan the barcode. There's some ability to look items up if you don't have the barcode. To start, right, I'm just going to type in something that is a barcode. Because we're all working remotely, I don't have a scanner that I can attach to read barcodes at this point, right? So I'm just going to type it in like I scanned it, pretend I scanned it. So it looks the item up, shows you what it found, some limited information about what it found, and the price so that you know that you can check the price. All right, so you would go through, scan your items, right? Scan, scan, scan. Okay, and we're going to talk just a little bit about how the tender cycle works. It's a little bit different if you're used to the way Retail Pro does this in older versions. So I ring my items, go to the tender button down here, this big blue button. If I click on this, now you'll notice, you know, a lot of this stuff is it's mouse or touch oriented. So the idea here is that touch screen is a really efficient way to deal with a browser-based software, right? So it's either, you know, click or touch to access different things. So you'll notice here I got automatically a window popped up that assumes we're taking credit card. This is programmable. So in Prism, you can tell the system default to a certain form of tender, if that's your wish. These days, most people, credit card is their number one, right? If you don't want to take a credit card on this particular transaction, down here at the bottom where it says tender type, if you click on that, you can change, right, to cash, check, charge, or whatever is configured in your system for you to be able to take, right? So I'm actually going to change this one to cash, so you can see how it works. So we have these cash buttons. You can use them if you want. So if they're handing me 320s for a $51.84 sale, I can click the 20 button 3 times, right? You also can just type it in here, right? So either way, take means I'm taking these $60, right? And it's going to figure out what change needs to be given back, right? It's going to assume that I'm giving back change in cash. This is configurable. If you allow change in things like credit cards or checks, you can limit what the change amount is given, or you can say no over tendering. That's all configurable. In the case of cash, generally we're going to give cash back, and you can see that this button just changed to give instead of take, right? So our take payments are up here, right? If I click the give button, okay, that puts my change down here, right? And my sale is satisfied. Now this doesn't automatically take off and assume that you're done, okay? And what you would do in order to finish the sale is select one of these two buttons down here, print and update or update only. Oh, somebody had a question, hang on. Larry, how to apply discount. I will get to that, Larry. Okay, so that's part of my script. Okay, so this transaction, right, is finished. I'm going to either update it or print an update. Now with the print, I have it configured to put it up on the screen so everybody can see it. That's an option. So when I click update, it's going to say here's what we did with the tenders. Yep, one last time, we get to check it off. Now this is set. This dialog box can be suppressed, or you can have it come up so that you can choose to email a receipt. You can print and email a receipt. You can just preview it, like I'm going to do here, so you can see what the receipt looks like. So this is the basic receipt. Tells you what you sold to the customer, right? I don't have a customer attached to this one. We'll do that in a sec, right? But how much sales tax you collected, just like a regular receipt, right? And so you can preview it, you can print it, you can print and email or email only. All of those things are options that you can set. If you don't use all the options, then you can definitely change the way that is. I can come into the question panes. Okay, Larry. All right, so I'm going to cancel this, right? So we've done a sale, right? That's the basics. And, you know, ring a sale, ring a sale, ring a sale. Now, a lot of the times, right, you need to ring a sale and you need to take a discount, right? So that's what we're going to do next. So you notice that when I came out of the previous sale, it automatically starts a new sale, right? So I'm ready to go for the next customer. So scan the item. Okay, now discounts on each line. You see this black bar. I'm going to put another line in here. Right, so I've got two lines. Now, if I wanted to do something to this line, right, I click on this line and the black bar shows up here. If I want to do something to this line, I click here, the black bar shows up here. Now, discounting line by line, you can handle this way, right? So you highlight the one that you want, the black bar comes out, you click discount here, you pick the kind of discount you want, either X dollar off, percent is usually the easiest, right? So when I click the percent, the cursor comes back up here, I put in the percent I want, press enter, right? We have an optional discount code, right? So I'm just going to say this is a coupon, right? And so that price now has been changed by 10%, right? So that's line item discounting. You can put a different discount reason or discount amount, percent, or take it to a price with a different code on every line if you wish. Later on, I will show you how to take X off the whole transaction. But for a simple discount like this, then that's all you have to do. While we're looking at this, right, I wanted to show you what you can do if we needed a gift receipt. So this is just a wrinkle, right, in the process here. So we ring the items, take whatever discounts we're doing, go to tender it. So tender the transaction right here. Hang on a second. Somebody's got a question. Oh, nope. I guess I already answered that one. All right. Sorry. Who's got their hand raised? Larry. All right. Not sure if I'm clearing your question, Larry. It says your hand's still raised. But it's acting a little funky. All right. Anyway, there, question. Here we go. There we go. No question. Got it. Okay. So we're in the tender cycle, right? So once you're in the tender cycle, before you're finished with this transaction, you can tell the system, hey, I'm going to want a gift receipt on this item. So down here at the bottom, see gift receipt is lit up in white, right? So I can click on gift receipt. Okay. I can tell the system whether I want a gift receipt for both things or just one thing, right? And you do that by, you can click, I just clicked on the item right here. Okay. And then so here, see that changed that gift quantity to 1 when I clicked on all, right? So if I had, bought 3 of the same thing and I only wanted a gift receipt for one of them, I could change that. It's a nice feature, but most people don't use it that much. But I flag the ones I want a gift receipt for, okay? And I tell the system down here if I flag them both. So I'm going to click on the top one here, right, and say flag that one, right? So I'm going to get a gift receipt for this and a gift receipt for this. My choices are, do I want them all on one receipt, or do I want one receipt per item? All right, so I'm going to pick one receipt per item so you can see what happens. Now, this is not going to print right now, okay, because I haven't paid for it. But I put gift receipt in the queue, essentially, so that when I do pay for it, I'm going to get all my receipts at one time. All right, so I'm going to pay with a credit card for this one. So I'm going to pick the type of credit card and go ahead and hit take. I'm not giving out any change, so my transaction is satisfied. I don't need to add any more tenders, right? And then if I do my print and update now, okay, I'm going to get my preview for my receipt for the customer that has everything on it, right? So here's what the customer bought, shows the discount here. This particular receipt happens to have a discount, the dollar amount that was discounted. You can have the dollar amount, you can have a percentage, you can have whatever you need on here, or nothing. Okay, that's a choice. And when I get done with this receipt, now it should come up with my gift receipts, right? So this gift receipt shows the item without any pricing on it, and this barcode right here is the actual transaction ID, right? So if a customer brings this back with the gift receipt, I can access the transaction, okay, and know how much that grandma paid for this item when they bought it and gave it to their the recipient, right? So as I said, I flagged both items, right? So this is item number 1. Oh, I guess item number 2 was probably farther down there. It will print 2 receipts, right? 1 for each. So I didn't scroll down far enough. All right, so that's a gift receipt right now. If you forgot to do your gift receipt, there is a way that you can reprint. All right, and so to get to a reprint, right, then you have to find the transaction. So here I've canceled my transaction. It's automatically started a new transaction, but I need to reprint the other one. I forgot to ask it for a gift receipt. The printer screwed up. I need another copy, what have you, right? So you need to get out of this transaction. So to get out of this new transaction, you hit cancel. Okay, so that down here at the bottom, you can see the selections that I have. The ones that are grayed out, right, are not available. So the only thing I can do here is new transaction or options. If I go to options, these are my options. So I can look my transaction up here. Okay, this is a filter. It's, you can set this for just today if you want. I don't have that many transactions in here, so I'm going to leave this filter. If you wanted to set it for today, you click on the black bar here, okay, and change this to beginning April 22nd through April 22nd. So if you wanted to change that, you could. It's going to show me all my transactions that I've done today. If you wanted to filter to just sales or layaways or whatever, right, you could do that, but we're not going to take the time to do that. We're just going to hit the search button right here. Okay, here's my 2 transactions, right? So the last one that I put in was this one right here, right? So if I wanted to recall that transaction so that I could do a reprint, I would highlight it, click View Transaction. Okay, so now you can see the transaction, right? Okay, and then if I go to the tenders on this, right, I've got gift receipt, right? So I didn't re-ring it, right? All I did was call it up again, hit gift receipt, right? I get my window again. Okay, so all right, I'm just going to do this one this time, right? And then print. Okay, and then this time, because it's a reprint, it's going to come up right away. I don't have to wait for the print update for the transaction, right? So here's my other receipt. Okay. Also, if you just wanted to print a regular receipt for this, then you could do that. You've got to return to the document here and print this. So this is the regular receipt reprint. If you wanted to do it, you have to be on the main screen where you can see the items in order to get that. But if you needed a gift receipt, you have to go to tender to do it. All right, so those are some basics. Now, I have this transaction on the screen, right? I'm not going to do anything with it. I could copy it. I could do other things with it. Editing, the only thing I could really edit would be, notes fields and comments and so forth, right? So I'm going to start a new transaction, right? So the new button down here on the bottom, right? And now I'm ready to do the next thing, right? So the next thing we're going to do is everybody's favorite, a return. For a return, you can tell the system, right? So you can see here in a new transaction, we assume sale, right? If I click on return here, I'm going to set the item type, which means that everything I enter is going to automatically be a return. All right, so if I set that and that's yellow, if I say, I'm going to pick a different item because I'm going to show you how to look the receipt up, right? So if this item was sold within the last X days and you have the receipt or you don't have the receipt and you want to look it up, right? You can tell the system, throw me in here where I can go find the receipt number. This is not a requirement, but you can pick an item that was sold previously and flag the receipt as being returned so they can't use that return again. All right, so I'm going to show you how that works, and keep in mind all of this is optional. You can just take a return, you can say no, ring an item, and you're done. Right. But if I say yes, okay, then it's going to ask me for the document number. If I don't have the document number, I can search for it, right? So I entered an item, right? And it's going to go look for transactions where that item was sold. If I don't give it a document number or a customer number to search on, it's going to search in this date range, right? So I'm going to back this up a day because I don't want to deal with the things that were rung up today. Just want to do that just for grins, right? So I don't have a document number, but search this date range and bring me the receipts where I sold that item, right? So click the search button, right? It found one, right? So yesterday, right, I rang this item up. Okay, so the thing is here, I haven't attached it to a customer. If I have more than one hit on this, there's not an easy way to tell, okay, whether it's the right thing. If I click on the right transaction, if I click on the item, I can see the other things that were sold on this receipt, right? So that's one way you can help verify. The best way, of course, is to actually have the receipt number, right? And you could scan that barcode, right, that came on the receipt in here, and it would find the right transaction. And from here, then you're just looking here and deciding, which thing is it that I'm actually returning off of here, right? And this one does not actually have the barcode number on it. Okay, so I'm just going to click on this one, right? And come on, baby. All right, so maybe not the one. That's it. Okay, so I picked the wrong item, right? So see if I pick this one, right, it's grayed out. It knows that's not the one I'm trying to return. This one is the one I'm trying to return. So if I click this, right, if I click that to select it, POS return item. Okay, see over here in the return details, right, it changed this to return quantity. So it's flagged this receipt as being used for this item. So I can check it off. I can tell the original receipt that it's been returned here. Go to return to document here. Come on, honey. All right, so I guess I didn't get all the way in here. Two. Okay, let me get this run up in here. All right, so this is a return, right? It should have come back from the receipt, right, and put this on the screen. So I'm not exactly sure where I clicked wrong, but moving forward, this is the return, right? So you can see here, there's nothing in here that says this is a minus anything, right? This return is what tells you this item was returned. Of course, you can see the minus 1425 down here, right? So in the case of this, if I'm only returning one item, I can change back to a sale by clicking on this, okay? And then if I ring up, like for instance, if this was an even exchange or something, then I can put in an item. Actually, I think I mistyped that item. Got an extra zero because I've got a large bird here when I meant to have a t-shirt. So that brings up, how do you get rid of that, right? So if I rang up the wrong item, I've got a remove button. Remove or void, right? So void leaves the item on the screen and changes the quantity to 0, so you know something was on there and somebody took it off. If you just want to remove it, you remove it. All right, so let me try that again. Set item type, okay, and then 20. There we go. Say no. All right, so this is a return for the t-shirt that I wanted to return, and if I wanted this to be, if they're exchanging it for size or something of that nature, right, then I would change this to sale. Okay, enter the item that they were taking. Okay, and so in this case, right, I've got, no, it's a wash, right, but I've taken one out of stock, and put one in stock, this screen doesn't show me the color and size, right? But if I click on the details right here, you'll be able to see where my, nope, can't see my color and size in that either. All right, so we'll talk about the details in a sec. But we do have screens where color and size is actually visible on here, so you can see what you're doing. And if you're by size and color, you definitely want that information on your screen. Okay, so this is a return, so you can have lines that are returns. You can have lines that are sales. That's the only way the system knows whether they're a net negative or a net positive. Okay. All right, now what I wanted to do with here is, kind of get into things like customer store credit, right? So in the case of a return, right, you may or may not want to give the customer back money, right? So the option is to give them a store credit, issue them, if you use internal gift cards, issue them an internal gift card. Okay, so I'm going to show you through that process and do customer tracking. All right, so I'm going to just remove this right here, okay, so that I have a net balance here. Now, if I go to tender this, okay, and I'm not giving money back, I go to the tender type here, and I want to pick credit. I can't see credit. The reason I can't see credit is I haven't put a customer on this receipt. Store credits need to have a customer in order to track their balance in the system, right? So I would have to return to document, okay, and deal with adding a customer up here in the top part, right? So for the first order of business here, I'm going to look up a customer by last name, right? So I have a bunch of Smiths, so you don't need to put both the first name and the last name. You can deal with the last name, part of the last name, type it in as much as you know that you can trust, right? Click the searcher button, okay, and it'll be a short list of the customers that meet the criteria, right? I am looking for Michael Smith because I've been building a lot of store credit for him, right? So I just pick them off the menu, put them here. Now I can go to the tenders, okay, and I can pick tender type down here, right? And now I have store credit. All right, so the system's smart enough to know if you don't have a customer, you can't do a store credit. Okay, so if I'm going to issue them store credit, I'm giving them $25.92. Okay. Now I wanted to show you what the receipt looks like with the return on it, so I'm going to do the print and update because I've satisfied the transaction now. Okay, and then preview. All right, so here's the return with the pricing on it. So it says return here. Oops, right there. Highlight too much stuff, right? And then it shows, right, that we gave a store credit, and that is the store credit involved on this particular document. Now, in the system, Michael Smith, right, has some store credit. So if I'm going to relook, so I've started a new transaction, right, automatically. I'm just going to dip in here and go to this Michael Smith. I got two of them in here, right? So that was the Michael Smith I dealt with. Now you can see this line shows up here where it shows me that Michael Smith has a store credit balance. So if you're using customers and they have store credits and they come in and they say, I have a store credit, my name is XYZ, right? You can see that and verify that information. So you don't have to depend on the paper, because if the paper, right, is old, then that might not be the most accurate information. Michael Smith may have come in and redeemed part or all of his store credit, and maybe, bringing the paper in and either intentionally or not, trying to get away with something. So Larry is asking the question, why didn't the invoice show Michael's name on it? And that is just a document design thing, right? So you can choose to display customer name and address, phone number, blah, 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 or not. Okay, so things that you see on the document design, right, which is the print, right? So let me cancel this, right, and go to options and go to transaction lookup, right, and then I'm just going to hit the search button and pick something. So this was Michael Smith, right? So I've just opened that transaction enough up again, right? Hit the print button, right? So up at the top in the header, you can print the customer information or not, and that's a feature of the doc design, which is the printouts that come with this, that how Retail Pro reads the fields and presents them on printed documents other than reports. All right, so couple of other things about basic transactions, right? I'm going to start a new transaction again. We're going to talk about things, transaction details here, which are fields that apply to the whole transaction, not just the line items, right? So if I click in transaction details, just so you can see what's in here, we're not going to use all these, but I just want to discuss them in general. So that you know this stuff is available. For those of you who have used version 8 or version 9, POS flag, right, is an optional field that you can flag transactions with. And we, in this case, this one looks like it was for how did they hear about us, right? Let's see, POS flag 2 didn't have anything in it. POS flag 3 looks like it was for various things. But anyway, they're fields where you can record demographics or something about this particular transaction, and it's fit from a fixed list so that it makes it reportable. Comments, anybody who's familiar with Retail Pro, 2 fields of comments that go on the bottom of each transaction. They can be picked from a list, right? Or they can be freeform type, right? And they can print on the document if you want or not. Okay. So fees, this can be bad check charges. We've got a short list here of fees that we've used in the past here. It's a fixed amount. There's one fee available per transaction. They can be taxed or not, right? So pretty straightforward if you have anything like that. Shipping is a separate field. If you have an address, right, that is different than the customer's primary address, you can fill that information in here so that we have the customer who purchased it, and potentially we can ship it to another customer or another address for the same customer. Shipping can be taxed or not, right? So, and I also want to point out while we're in here, right, you see down here at the bottom, I've got 2 sections, sales and order. Right, so orders are things like layaways, customer special orders, things like that. And in this webinar, we don't attempt to cover that because it's it takes a while to explain. So if you are one who does layaways or special orders extensively, and you want to see or talk over how Prism works in that area, send an email into the service department or whatever, and we can arrange, a little demo with sales team or whatever is appropriate to show you how orders work in Prism. All right, so other things in here, right? You can assign multiple sales associates for commission purposes to the transaction. So if you split the transaction, there's a way that you can assign it to more than one person. Price levels we're not going to talk about, is not really applicable for this discussion. Discounts. So when Larry asked about doing a discount, another way you can do a discount here is take a discount off the whole transaction, right? And that's where you would do this type of thing. It's called a global discount. in Retail Pro, a transaction discount is, and this you would put in the transaction details here. Right, taxes, pretty self-explanatory. We have multi-level taxes, and the tax schedule is really set in a different area and just applied to every transaction based on how you have your settings, right? And then a place for freeform notes, like those emails that you send when you communicate with somebody online, right? You can fill in, I don't know how many characters, but it's attached to this transaction in case you need to know something for later. All right, so those are all the fields that are transactional fields, not line item fields. Some of those, anybody who's from V8 or V9 would be familiar with, but in general, just the transaction totals, right? Okay, so one other brief thing that we need to get through as far as maybe not necessarily dealing with customers, right? There are two things, putting transactions on hold and disbursements, which are generally paid out, type of thing. So first, what I'm going to do is put a transaction on hold and show you how that works. All right, so if I enter an item or 2 or 6, right, and the customer wanders off, right, and I've got to deal with my next customer, or they, had to go get their wallet or what have you, right? The other thing that I didn't point out here is you can see little pictures popping up here, right here. It's a dinky picture, so I hope you can see it. But with each transaction, right, the line item picture appears if we have it. If there is not a picture on file for that item, then you won't see the picture in this little corner. It can be made bigger. We just try to keep it to a minimum here so that we use all the real estate so you can see the items. Anyway, so I run this up. Now, whether or not I've attached it to a customer doesn't matter, right? I can put it on hold. So this hold button down here stashes this transaction, right? And then allows me to start a new transaction. So you can see when I held it, it didn't automatically start a new transaction, okay? But I could start a new transaction, okay, ring stuff up, okay, and then when I'm done, go back to and retrieve my hold, right? So what we're going to do here is we're going to talk a little bit about what's in the customer information, okay? So just briefly, right, if I'm going to add a new customer, I'm already started a new transaction. I can just click the new button for customer. I can put in what the required information is. Okay, so now in this case, right, I'm not requiring anything other than first or last name. I could, fill in whatever information here that's necessary, okay, and then save it. And then that customer is now flagged on my receipt, and the details of the information would be recorded in here. Also, that you see a couple of things, credit, loyalty if you're using it. I don't happen to have loyalty turned on here. Okay. So that, it's really quick to add a customer in the system, and then you can go back and fill in the details later if you need to, right? Once a customer's in the system, they start accumulating history. So if time permits, I'll go, show you how you research customer history. But anyway, that's how you add a new customer. Actually, let's dip in here really quick. So you can see I had that customer set up and I had a go-to there. And so if you go to go-to and you can see this screen, this is the customer history now. I just added this person, so there's no customer history. But you could dip in here really quick, right, and tell the system I want to go back since forever, right, and then search that customer's history and have it displayed up there, right? And so if you needed to recall a transaction, you can highlight it with this go to transaction. Just wanted to, dip in there really quick, clear, search, and then back me up, right? And then go back to my transaction here, new transaction. All right. Okay, so I'm back at my transaction. I still have, Joanne set up right here. Okay, so I could ring items for this person. So that was go to get into the customer information if you needed to look up their history while they're on the transaction. Okay, and if you needed to do any more extensive research, or you didn't want to be in a transaction when you did that, right? If you go to options, okay, and customer, oops, let me cancel out of the transaction, right? So I'm not in a transaction now. I canceled it, right? So I'm not in a transaction. If I go to this and customer lookup, I have the same capability right here. So, okay, this is me, right? So if I highlight me and I select the customer, now I'm back here where I can see my history. I have, if I search, right, I have transactions. Oh, you know what? I didn't attach it to my customer. All right. Anyway, you can get into this, right, and see what the person purchased previously. Not sure. I'm searching by transaction type. All new. All right. So what I want to do from here though is I need to come back to my hold, right? So I have cleared my line, and the person who was wandering around that I have a partial transaction on hold for comes back to my register, right? I can only look it up if I'm not in the middle of an active transaction. So right now I'm in the middle of an active transaction, right? So I have to cancel, okay, and then go to options and then pending transactions, right? So when you put something on hold, it stays in this pending queue until you do something with it, right? So right at the top here is the one that I just put on hold. There's some stuff from yesterday, right, when I was practicing, right? And those stay there, right, until somebody comes in and hits discard, right? So holds stay until somebody actively does that, okay? And that can be, permission based. Not everybody needs to have the capability of doing that. But if I want to recall this transaction, right, I highlight it, I click to view, right? It brings it back. Oh, that wasn't the one I wanted because it didn't have the items on it. All right, so cancel or option. Yeah, options, pending transactions. So where was the one that I froze? Oh, I must have deleted it. All right, so I'm just going to pick one from yesterday, right? So view transaction. That doesn't have anything on it. Cancel. Pending. I went a little crazy yesterday. So pending. Oh, this is what I want, right? Sorry. Status here, the pending transaction is different than hold, right? So held to change the status here. So I see the hold with the sold quantity already on it. Sorry, just missed a step there. All right, so view that transaction, right? When it brings it back in, right, you're just looking at it, right? So I haven't opened it, haven't unheld it. It's not in an active state, right? So if I want it in an active state, I have to click unhold. All right, so now it's in an active state, and I can change anything I want about it. Customer, I can add a customer, take a customer off, change the amounts, right, by using this. Let's take a discount of 10%, right, on this item. Okay, and let's say it's just one of those discounts, right? So I have full edit capability once I bring it back from hold, do anything I want before I save it or tender it out, right, including adding a customer, right? So let's just put this on. All right, so that person, right? And then tender, and let's say need a different credit card just so we can have something to close out with. We're going to make that a MasterCard, okay, and then take the whole thing in MasterCard, okay, and then print and update, right? Preview. So there's my receipt with what they purchased, with their discount, and how they paid for it. All right, so one last thing before we go to close, right? For those of you who might do paid outs out of the register, okay, that is accessed, right? So I'm in a new transaction. I need to cancel out of my new transaction. I need to go back to my POS menu, right? So this is the transaction screen. Easiest way to go back to your POS menu is to see this little Retail Pro button way down in the lower right. Okay, go to point of sale. Okay, now the things here, right, if they're grayed out, that means that this person doesn't have the rights to do it, or they're not in the right state to do it. So you don't have to be afraid of people, unauthorized people getting into these scary looking things like admin console or store operations. All right, so back to my point of sale screen. So you can see the disbursement on here. Right. So I also have things that were accessible from the transaction screen, right? I have transaction lookup, I have customers up here. So if you're not, standing at the register in front of customers, right, and you need to look things up, right, or deal in your customer database, you can do that from this this screen. All right. So new disbursement. Right, so this is a paid out essentially. So cash drop means we're going to take cash out of the drawer, put it in the safe, and then we know we've taken that money out and we don't have to count it when we go to close. But I'm just going to do a straight paid out. Okay, and then generally we would say why, right? I went and bought paper towels or toilet paper, as is currently the rage. Okay, and then you're going to pick a reason, right? And then you're going to tell me how you're taking the money out. So for the most part, right, if I click add tender, right, we're going to do that in cash. And this one's defaulting to that. You can have an option, have an option to pay for it on a credit card or whatever, but that's rare. So let's say, I went and bought rolls of toilet paper, right? I paid $10 for it. Okay, and then I can update this transaction. I can actually print this if I want a receipt to staple to my receipt for my toilet paper, but I'm just going to update only for now. Now, the system knows I took $10 out of the register, so when I go to close, I'm not expected to count that because I know where it went. All right, so with the time we have left, we're going to go through what the Z out or the closing looks like. Now, all of that info, right, is under XZ out here. So an X out is a reading, right? So that what that means, and by default, right, we're saying I want a reading for what happened today. You can say all workstations if you have multiple, but this is just a filter to determine what shows up on the X. I'm just going to click the print button right here. Okay, so this is a 40 column receipt piece of paper, right, that tells me what my sales are, what my tax is, if there are any fees going on, anything like that, right? Just basics on what your total take was, right? How the money was broken out, how much was merchandise, how much was tax, etc. Right? You can see here that I had a store credit, right? So it added back my store credit to this number to get what my cash flow total was. So that's what I'm taking to the bank, 408.46, in the form, right, of cards, right, and cash, right? So what I'm looking at here, right, is that I'm looking at how much cash I'm supposed to count, right, because I didn't really keep track. I have I started with $100 in the drawer. It actually looks like it didn't take my $100. All right, anyway. So we're going to close, right? And we should be counting $41.84. Okay, because that's the that was my cash money that's left in the drawer after cash sales and disbursements. All right, so we're going to cancel this, and we're going to go through an actual Z out. Excuse me. All right, so I'm going to use my back arrow here to get back to my Z out. All right, and then Z out, right, brings up the open register, the close register. We've already opened it, so it should error out if it says open again, right? So we're going to go to close. It should know you have an outstanding open, right? It should default to this so that it's going to match up with your outstanding open, right? So if I go to next, okay, here I've got the count again, right? So for whatever reason, I've got open amount here, but it didn't show up. Okay, so we're going to leave 0, right? So this might not come out exactly the way I want it, but I'm going to tell the system that I have $41 and I can't remember how many cents it was. So I think it was 80 something, right? So this is what I count in my drawer. Now, you're supposed to count the bank, right, plus this. But for some reason, I'm thinking that it's not going to see my bank. And then let's do this. Well, let's see how far we get this way, right? So you count all the money in the drawer. Okay. This is an attempt to show you what other bankable and or non-bankable tenders you have. So here's 2 credit cards. You can see 2 here and 2 here. So the idea here, right, is to check those off and say, yeah, I got those. Now, if you're using any kind of connected scenario, or what have you, right, these are already in the queue and automatically closed in the middle of the night. This is basically just a reference to make sure that that looks like the amount of activity that you have. If you have an credit card type of situation, you can print a list from your credit card terminal of what items or what transactions you have, and you can check them off and make sure they all match. Any place where there's a quantity, right, like the store credit, you could do the same thing, right? And this list of fields is configurable, so you don't have to see everything. You don't want to, okay? But if it's on here, right, you want to match it, because what's going to happen when you go next, right, you're going to see reconciliation, right? And if you took a form of tender that you didn't match, it will show you that you're short, that amount, whatever it was, right? So when I click this, right, so here I've got open, yeah, so I'm short because I didn't count that $100, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back, okay, because I can. I'm going to go back more. Okay, I'm going to add here. All right, and then these should stay matched. That stays matched, and then we'll do my reconciliation again. All right, so I had opened with $100, right? I had sales of $51.84, but I took $10 from that as a paid out, right? So that's what I should have had, and I was 4 cents short. And I could go back and I could fix that if I really wasn't 4 cents short. But let's say, for instance, this we didn't want to mess with the case. So I'm all matched up, right? I print a report, right? So this looks a lot like the X. Okay, so I have my sales, tax expected, and then information about how much discounts I took, what fees I had, that kind of thing. So here, right, I've got open amount 100. I took 60 bucks in and gave back 816 and change. No cash drop, no paid ins, but I had a $10 paid out, right? Which gives, so it does the math. Computers are really good at math. And I counted 141.80. So I'm short 3.99999 cents, which I'm not sure why that's coming out that way. But basically I'm 4 cents short. It will net that out of the deposit, right? So what we want is we want whatever we're over short, right, to net out of the deposit because we want to leave our $100 in the bank, quote unquote. All right, and then down here, right, for the credit cards, it'll show you a breakout of each credit card and or non-bankable tender. So you have all that information. You can print this, right, or I'm going to cancel, essentially, right, and finish closes your register. And if you needed to reprint your Z, right, if you forgot to print it after you close, you can go back in here. Oop, question, sorry, I don't know. Yeah, it's off because of sales tax rounding. Yeah, that's what Debbie's reminding me. There are some issues in rounding sales tax between the receipt and the totals. All right, anyway, so if I wanted to reprint the Z, right, I could come here, I could look it up, right, so I want to search for the Z that was today, can see that, I can reprint that anytime I want, right, or I can just look at the status of it, you can see the over short there, right, so if you wanted to review what went on over the weekend with the closings, and because you weren't there, you can use this to look. All right, so that's basically the agenda for this webinar, and the Prism is the wave of the future as far as Retail Pro goes. This Prism can be run on anything essentially that has a browser. Okay, so you can even configure this screen to run on small tablets. I've even seen people do it on the phone, although I wouldn't recommend it. It's pretty dinky, but it is possible, right? So you open up a world of possibility as far as device platforms when you have Prism. If for those of you who are currently on version 9, if there is if you're contemplating Prism for just the front end / the sales portion, you can have Prism as your front, and that talks to form of version 9 in the background. So you still have your all familiar version 9 item entry, purchase orders, vouchers, blah blah blah, right? Newer versions of Prism have that as well, right, in their in Prism itself. But we just focus on the POS part. The POS part you can pull out, right, and run just the POS part and still have V9 in the background. So if there were any questions that I did not answer, right, feel free to send in an email to sales or service. That's sales at bighairydog.com or service at bighairydog.com. Also, any of you who signed up here, right, if your email was on your sign up, you'll get a link back to this webinar so that you can review it again, right? And so if you get that link and you want to respond to that link, not sure if that goes back to GoToMeeting or somebody that in Big Hairy Dog, but anyway, you have questions, right? You need further explanation. Now's the perfect time to get all that out while we're mostly on lockdown, because we have the time to answer questions and really figure out if this is right for you. All right, so thanks for your attention, right? And like I said, you'll get an email back with this once I post it. Oh, somebody has a question, right? Okay, thanks, Debbie. Don't hesitate to ask, right, if you have further questions or you want to further explore whether this is right for your situation. All right, thanks for your attention.